Am I the a-hole for throwing my siblings in foster care so I could have a better life? I have roughly too many siblings and even more step-siblings. Between my parents and my latest stepfather, we had 8 kids living here. Myself, 19 female, 3 half-siblings on my mom's side, 15, 11, and 9. 4 step-siblings, 14, 12, 9, and 6. And 1 full sister, 6 female. Things have never been particularly good or stable, but now we're at rock bottom. My mother and stepfather are going to be going away for a long time and everyone is in a rush to get all these kids into homes. I'm the only one who's over 18, so everyone wants me to do it. I don't want to. I had gotten an opportunity. My grandma on my father's side offered to have 6 female and I move in with her, and even pay for me to go to college. The thing is, she lives several states away. I talked to social services about this and got the answer that I could move 6 female without a problem because our parents were able to voluntarily give me guardianship of her and I'm her full sister. The rest I could only take in if I stayed in the States because they would be a full foster care placement though. I'm sorry, but being forced to stay here would destroy my future. I could definitely survive, but I would be stuck in this horrible place working paycheck to paycheck. I could never have a real life, so I made the obvious choice. The social workers were nice enough to arrange it to where 6 female and I weren't just standing in front of them during the pickup, but obviously they know exactly why they're now in care. The 4 of them that have phones have been texting and calling me nonstop. Some of them for help and some to just scream at me for abandoning them. I know the system is going to be really bad for them because of where they are and their ages, but I just can't do it. I can't blow this. This is mine and 6 females' first chance for a real life, and I feel like I owe it to both of us to take it. Am I in the wrong here? The kids and my mom think I am. My grandma thinks I should have done something but can't say what, and wouldn't let them in her house even if it could happen. The only person who doesn't think worse of me is 6 female, who says she likes the quiet, but obviously doesn't know the full story. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your siblings should be mad at your parents, not you. They were the ones putting everyone in this position. You are 19. In no way can or should you be the parent to that many kids. Don't fault yourself. You were put in that situation too, not just them. Good luck to all of you. And half-siblings and step-siblings, there should be other parents and grandparents who could take them in. The full sibling is the only one where there isn't another parent, and it sounds like grandparent is stepping up for her and you. Not the a-hole. Exactly what stuck out to me too. The half-siblings presumably have fathers out there, and the step-siblings have a mother. Even if those parents are also out of the picture for whatever reason, I assume they have families. So that means not a single adult from 4 possible families was willing to step up for any of the kids? And yet they all judged the 19-year-old for not doing it. I feel for those kids and I don't blame them for being upset, but it's horrible that mom and everyone else is encouraging them to direct the anger at OP. This is not her fault at all. I don't know where any of the extended families are except mine and 6 females. I wasn't close to either of the fathers of my half-siblings. If I ever met their families, it was maybe once. My mom's family aren't people I would go see voluntarily. I have some involvement in the foster care system in my country. It is absolutely amazing how often desperate social workers will try to come up with a kinship care solution that a 5-year-old could see would never work. The problem is that the system is in crisis. There aren't enough foster carers, and social workers have caseloads that are too high. So in desperation, they will try to stitch together some kinship, family care, plan that usually falls apart in a couple of months. There is no way in the world that an 18-year-old should ever be approved to take on 6 or 7 children. It should never even have been offered as an option to you because you don't have the capacity to raise those children and care for them. You made the right choice. It's heartbreaking, but it's right. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my friend and her daughter live with me and my boyfriend? Me, female 25, and my boyfriend Marcus, male 29, have been together for 3 years, lived together for 2. I've known Ellie, female 24, since we were kids. We grew up down the street from each other and have remained close friends all these years. She has a 3-year-old daughter, Heather. The guy that got her pregnant ended up being a total piece of crap and left her as soon as she gave birth. He then signed away his parental rights and is no contact. Ellie and Heather currently live with her parents and they help her financially. Ellie's family is from France and her parents have moved here before she was born. They decided they want to move back to France next year so they can be closer to the rest of the family. Ellie wants to stay here, but she's not financially stable enough to live on her own. Marcus and I bought a 3-bedroom house to move into in January. We wanted the extra space so we could have room for our 2 dogs, and we will use the extra rooms as a guest room and an office since I have a hybrid job. An office half the time / work from home the other half. Ellie asked if her and Heather could move into the guest room for a couple years while she saves money to get her own place. I have a few issues with this. 1, she has a kid. Nothing against Heather, she's a sweet girl and I've babysat her a few times. But me and Marcus are child-free, so we don't want to have to change the way we live to accommodate one. Things like child-proofing the place, potentially being woken up at night to a crying kid are things we just don't want. 2, Ellie isn't trustworthy with finances. She doesn't make moves to better her life. Her family paid for online college classes and she failed out. They pay for childcare while Ellie works but she keeps quitting jobs. She spends money on new clothes for herself instead of saving, etc. She does not contribute to bills or groceries for her parents whatsoever. Basically lives there for free. 3, Marcus and I just want our own space for us and our dogs. And we've worked really hard to save up the money for this house, and we just want it to be for us. 4, it would be for at least a year or 2. We wanted a guest room for friends and family to be able to stay with us when visiting, but only for temporary stays, like 1 to 2 weeks max. Marcus agrees with me on all these points. However, Ellie called me in tears saying that she has no other option, and that she wants her and Heather to stay in the US but can't do it alone. She practically begged me, saying that I was an a-hole for having all this extra space, and not using it to help her out of her situation when we've been friends for so long. She told me if the situation was reversed, she would do it for me. I don't want to have to see her move away and be unhappy, but the whole setup would just make us uncomfortable. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at all. Those couple of years would basically be you with a child you didn't sign up for. And honestly, it would probably end up a lot longer than a couple of years. It's your house. You decide who stays and who doesn't. And her lack of planning is not your emergency. Ellie has other options. Either get her act together or move back to France with her parents. Not the a-hole. Right? She's acting desperate. But she has a home waiting for her in France if she's unwilling to not be a lazy flake. And it sounds like Ellie hasn't paid for rent, utilities, childcare, or food in years. She should absolutely have enough money saved to put a deposit on an apartment or something. This begs another question. Who will watch Heather while Ellie is at work or out? I'm assuming she will want Opie to watch the kid when she's working from home. If Ellie can't support herself and her child, she needs to move to France with her parents. Not expect to get the same treatment her parents give her from her friends. That is asking way too much of Opie and her husband. They may be lifelong friends, but it's not their responsibility to support her. Not the a-hole. Ellie has had months / years living with her parents to better her position and hasn't done so. Even though he signed away his rights, she could pursue the father for child support, but presumably hasn't done so. Why should you and your husband do more for Ellie and her daughter? House them, probably pay their utilities and maybe even feed them, than Ellie had done herself. If you let her move in, Ellie won't save. She'll just spend her money just like she always has. If Ellie wants a free ride, she can move to France with her parents. If she wants a free ride, she can just not. Because that's not the way the real world works. Not in the USA, not in France, not in Canada, not anywhere. Her parents are no longer responsible for her as an adult, and they're not obligated to pay thousands of dollars / euros for her to move to France so she can continue to leech off of them. She needs to get a job and support her child, and maybe it will take her being homeless temporarily to pull her head out of her behind and learn that. I feel bad for the daughter though. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not caring for a child I said I wouldn't care for? I'm 28 female, am child-free. I don't even really like kids. My sister, 23 female Amber, has a kid, and because it's a pretty close-knit family, she's pretty used to everyone pitching in to help. She said she was going out for a few hours and was stopping at my house to pick up a package delivered to me by mistake. We have the same street number on similar sounding streets. Think 25 Hirsch and 25 Hurst, so this happens pretty often. When Amber got to my house, she put down her kid and said, "Thanks for watching him, by the way." I asked her what she was talking about. She said she was thanking me for watching her kid as well. I said that I never agreed to it and was not okay with that. But she said, "We're sisters, family helps family," and ended up leaving. So I didn't. I left the kid right in my entryway where Amber left him and just went about my day. I didn't leave the house or anything, but I said I'm not a babysitter, and I wasn't one. Well, Amber got mad at me when she came back 4 hours later and the kid had a full diaper and was crying when he saw her. I told her I said I wasn't watching her kid, and she's lucky I didn't call the police. But Amber said that not wanting to babysit doesn't mean you don't do it. The entire family sides with her, and Amber says she's cutting me off until I apologize and make more of an effort with my nephew. I've gotten nasty messages from relatives galore, and the only one who doesn't think me a raging witch is my dad, who doesn't involve at all in family drama. I do love my sister and understand family is family, but am I really the a-hole for not doing a job I expressly said I don't want? Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. You left a baby unsupervised for 4 hours? No matter what point you were trying to prove, are you really willing to risk the life of a baby to make it? The only good solution here was to tell her you wouldn't take care of the kid and tell her that if she leaves, you'll call the police. Then you call the police when she leaves. You don't let a kid unsupervised for 4 hours, even if your sister sucks. You don't let a kid unsupervised for 4 hours to prove a point. The baby was in a carrier. They left a child in the entryway in a carrier for 4 hours. Honestly disgusting of OP. Everyone sucks here. Yes, and people are missing the fact that babies have died in carriers from positional asphyxiation and strangulation. Is OP nuts? You would not leave a puppy out there like that. It can literally die. By all means, call the police or CPS to teach her a lesson. But risking a kid's life to prove some sort of point is WTF mate territory. The only one even more insane is the mom. How in the world does she leave her own baby alone like that without an adult explicitly taking responsibility? Truly, a lot of people in this world should not breed. This whole family's absolutely guano crazy. Everyone sucks here. Hard. You're the a-hole. You punished a tiny baby for the actions of an adult. Punishing the innocent is always an a-hole move. Doing it to a literal infant in diapers is unconscionable. You should be ashamed of yourself. Glad she plans to be child-free. At least some self-awareness, I guess. This is less child-free and more like anti-kid. Child-free people aren't cruel to kids. They just don't want them for themselves. She's what called aggressively child-free. They're some of the cruelest losers allowed to walk among the general public. Pathetic in every way and willing to let a child suffer for their own values. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to babysit my ex's stepkids? Plus updates. My ex Thomas and I have been split for around 4 years. We have 2 kids together. Twins, a boy and a girl aged 12. He married Sandy about 18 months ago. She has 2 children between 7 to 10 years old. Our current custody agreement is I have the kids 2 weeks on 1 week off when they go to Thomas's. It's a private agreement we have as it works best with his job as he travels, so we make sure for that week he's home. Recently I got a text from Sandy asking if I could come pick the kids up. She had plans and my ex had been held up at work. Wasn't a problem. I was on my way home from work so I could swing by and get them. I rang my ex to confirm that's what he wanted and also said it's around 5:30. I'll keep them for the night. He said that was great and would let Sandy know. When I got to their place, my kids opened the door and were packed and ready to go. The kids called out that I was there and they were leaving, and she yelled out a goodbye. As I was pulling out of the driveway, Sandy comes running out waving her arms. I stopped and asked what the problem was, and she said why I didn't take her kids. I said that wasn't what I agreed to and I would never agree to that. She replied, "Why not? I'm always babysitting your kids." I said that's something between you and Thomas, but my kids are my responsibility. And I'm sorry, but I don't know your children well enough to take them back to my house and have them stay. I left, and within 2 minutes, Thomas is on the phone begging me to go back and get Sandy's kids because she always watches ours. I said the same thing to him and hung up. I got the kids home, and while they were having dinner, I asked how often does Sandy watch them. My son said they normally don't see their dad till the weekend. Sometimes they see him in the morning, but it's normally Sandy who is with them during the week. I left the kids to watch TV and rang Thomas back. He started cussing me out about Sandy's kids. I let him finish and asked why he thought it would be appropriate for a woman that those kids hardly know look after them at my house. He said again that Sandy watched our kids, so fair is fair, and I've also upset her kids as they were looking forward to the sleepover. I rang my sister to vent and she flipped it on me and said I was taking my issues with Sandy and Thomas out on Sandy's kids. I don't have any issue with either of them, but I'm starting to feel like I was the a-hole, but I made no promises to our kids. Not the a-hole. That's just not how custody works. You aren't obligated to take care of your ex's stepkids. At this point, I would ask him if he wants to modify custody. Obviously, he is taking this as some sort of favor she is doing for you by babysitting your kids. Take that power off the table. If this is such a burden that she feels entitled to reciprocal childcare, I can certainly take that off both of your plate. And then there is no obligation that can even be inferred. Yep, get all of their answers in text about how often the ex is actually spending time with the kids and how they both claim she's babysitting. If he isn't spending the time with them, he doesn't need them that often. Then the new wife doesn't really have anything to say, aside from the obvious fact that Opie's never obligated to watch these other kids. Info. She says she babysits the kids during Thomas week. She has never babysat for me during my time. Update. I wasn't aware that Thomas was MIA during the week. I always ask the kids how was it at their dad's, what they did, etc., but I never grill them for info, and they haven't mentioned before he hadn't been home. I also don't want to go guns blazing to my lawyers and changing our custody agreement. In our country, not America, it's very common to have private agreements done with our lawyers and not in front of a judge. I have messaged Thomas to have a catch-up about the kids. Info. For everyone asking about right of first refusal, this is not a law in our country. Final update. Thanks for all your comments. I've just gotten back from a catch-up with Thomas. We have agreed for right now I'll have the kids full-time and I'll have them every second weekend. But I have also made him agree that he'll take them out during the week twice a month. And when his work settles down, we will go back to the original agreement with him being at home. Otherwise, I will be going for full legal custody through the courts. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my parents my address? I, 24, female, am one of 2 kids. My older sister, 28, female, was the golden child and honestly, I feel bad for her. My sister was a prodigy. She skipped 3 grades, was gifted in both academia and athleticism. And my parents made her life hell. Her schedule was full. School, extracurriculars, sports, music lessons, dance lessons, etc. When I was very young, I was jealous of her. Then I turned 10 and started feeling really bad for her. She wasn't allowed friends as they would hold her back. Free time as she could have the rest of her life to enjoy after finishing medical school, or even the freedom to choose her future career. Or her own hobbies, as it was all planned for her to maximize her chances to get into Harvard for pre-med, and then Johns Hopkins for med school. When she graduated high school at 15, almost 16, my parents uprooted us because they couldn't allow her to go to college on her own. So we left Virginia to go to Massachusetts. I resented them so bad then, but I felt even more sympathy towards my sister because for years she has been dreaming about finally having some freedom while in college. They continued with their intense control over her life. I graduated high school back in 2016, then in 2018 I left the whole country. That was how much I hated them. I moved to France, went to school here, and I'm currently working here. When my sister got into med school, they still maintained their controlling attitude. Then sadly, in late 2019, she suffered a drug-induced psychotic break. To this day, she is still institutionalized because it developed into full-on schizophrenia. When all their hopes they had hung on her ended in nothing, because of them, she started taking drugs because of how stifling they were. They tried to do the same for me. Sadly for them, I was already a self-sufficient adult on the other side of an ocean and they had no control over me. They are my sister's legal guardians, so I couldn't cut them off. They are exactly the type of people who would limit my contact with her. And lately, they have been pestering me to give them my address. Apparently, they want to visit me and get to know my boyfriend. I refused, and keep refusing. But I also feel a bit of guilt. Them knowing my address does not mean that they would be dropping in every weekend. They live in a completely different country, and my refusal is making my mom very sad. Also, I have a lot of friends telling me that it's unreasonable. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Your parents sound like dangerous and manipulative people. I would stay low contact, not the a-hole. I literally can't. If I don't call at least every other week, they will have me removed from the list of people allowed to contact my sister. They have told you that? If they have made such a threat, that is manipulative and just awful. More or less, if I don't call often enough, they would accuse me of not caring about my family. So there was no need for me to pretend to care about my sister. Here's the thing, they need you more than you need them. What's going to happen to your sister when they pass? I would be afraid that they're trying to reel you back to force you into being her guardian when they no longer can. In addition to having you live out all the dreams your sister can't for their gratification. Stay far away. Don't let them back in, even if it means you are removed from your sister's list. Right now, they're emotionally blackmailing you. Imagine what they could do if you let them back in. Not the a-hole. Go no contact. Hire a lawyer to sue for the right to visitation and communication. Save any messages indicating that they're using visitation for blackmail or retribution. You never have to set foot in the country. Let the lawyer deal with it, as many states have some degree of visitation rights for adults under guardianship. Sorry you have parents like this, but you can't ever give them any control over you. If your sister was of sound mind, I'm sure her former self would tell you to let her go rather than get under their thumb. You can harangue them with lawyers to put their actions as a guardian under a microscope. Try to contest their guardianship. It isn't cheap, but you can dedicate yourself to breaking their control, make them miserable, or get them to capitulate. Sounds better than hiding or letting them win. Next story. Am I the a-hole for throwing my niece out of my house? I, 48 female, have a beautiful daughter, Amelia, 17 female. I'm a single mother because Amelia's father left before she was born and she's my whole entire world. Amelia's also a teen mother to my beautiful grandson, Owen, 1 male. I'm obviously not proud of her for being a teen mother, but I'm extremely proud of her for how she is handling everything. She is an amazing mother and she is still doing very well at school. She is dating Owen's father, Raymond, 17 male, who is a lovely kid too. They all live with me in my home and I provide for them financially with some support from Raymond's family. I'm a lawyer, and I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home most of the time, so I care for my grandson during the day, while Raymond and Amelia are at school. When I have to go into work, Raymond's family looks after Owen. Recently, my sister called and asked me if I could allow her daughter Stephanie, 19 female, to move in with me. It's difficult to find a place to live in our city, so I agreed to let her move in for free. I'm very big on family taking care of each other, so I didn't want to charge my sister's daughter rent. I immediately noticed that Stephanie was being weird about Amelia being a teen mother. She'd make tasteless jokes, and I immediately took her aside and told that I wouldn't tolerate any sort of teasing. I've hired a tutor for both Amelia and Raymond just for extra support, and when Stephanie found out, she rolled her eyes and said they wouldn't need one if they had just been responsible. She also said that it was rewarding bad behavior, but I told her that I like to take care of my family, just as how I allowed her to move in for free. Then I realized that Stephanie was taking some of Amelia's clothing without permission. When she first moved in, I told her that in my home, we ask for permission before take other people's belongings. So I was pretty annoyed at it. Amelia asked Stephanie to return a shirt that she had taken and she refused, and said that Amelia didn't need it back because she didn't fit into it. Amelia did gain weight as a result of pregnancy and breastfeeding, and it's made her very insecure. It was a shirt she wore pre-baby and she keeps it so she can use it to motivate herself to lose weight. I told Stephanie to return it immediately and apologize, but she refused. We got into a massive argument that resulted in me packing her bags and calling her mother to come and get her. Everyone in the family is now bombarding me with phone calls calling me the a-hole for kicking her out. I fear I may have been too extreme, and I could have tried to sort it out before it got bad. Am I the a-hole? So your freeloading niece comes into your rent-free home, bullies your daughter, steals her things, and your family think you are the bad guy for packing her bags? They're having a laugh. Tell them to feel free to take her in if they feel that strongly. Not the a-hole. I wonder what is Opie's sister saying about her and her daughter behind Opie's back. Because niece has no respect for Opie and her daughter. And either she is a very horrible person or she picked up some things from her mom. Have a list with all the family members that have bugged you about this. Offer them to contribute to the niece. Make it public and leave it at that. There's family, and then there's leeches. A little bit of salt will get rid of the ones that are stuck on your back. Like that idea. Online GoFundMe and forward it to them, inviting them to donate publicly. / put their money where their mouths are. Not the a-hole. Die on this hill, OP. Stephanie's an entitled brat and also a thief. You were generous to her letting her move in, and she's done nothing but disrespect you and your daughter. She's corrupting what would otherwise be a healthy environment for everyone else. while a few years from being relevant. Also not something the baby will need to grow up hearing and parroting. Not the a-hole. You handled yourself with grace, patience, and love. Seriously? Well done. You were very gracious to let your niece live there for free and have the opportunity to get a set up in life. You set clear boundaries and she trampled all over them. You also gave her ample time to shape up. Furthermore, you didn't let the nastiness towards your daughter go unchecked. Simply put, you made all the right moves, and you kicking her out was definitely the right move. I would venture to say she is jealous of the support you give your daughter and her success because of it. Enough so that it blinded her towards appreciating what you gave to her. She really shot herself in the foot. Next story. Am I the a-hole for selling my truck that I promised my nephew 10 years ago? I had a classic Chevy that's blue and white that I bought over a decade ago when I was a teenager. It meant a lot to my friends and I, as throughout our college years, I was like their dad friend in a system of chosen family. It meant a lot to me because before I fixed it up, it was the truck I slept in when my parents kicked me out. I promised this truck to my nephew 10 years ago. I didn't come for much, but have found myself blessed with a good house and a wife I absolutely adore. We are having a baby much sooner than expected, and I want money to send the kid to the nice daycare that I pass on my way to work. The one that teaches sign language and works with animals/gardening. I didn't tell my wife. She knows I love my truck. I didn't tell friends. I sold it and made a good bit of money to put a down payment on a more reasonable car for a baby. The kind my wife has wanted as her car is beat up and she deserves a new one. Then some for daycare. And some money for college if the kid wants to go/ends up going. Or just starting as an adult money. My friends got upset that they won't be riding in it anymore. Worried I won't be hanging out with them anymore and think my wife put me up to it. My wife cried and told me I shouldn't have sold my truck. That she doesn't need a new car. Not true. Her blinker doesn't even work. Lights pushed in. The poor thing is barely holding on. She swears it's cosmetic, but she just regularly struggles to accept gifts. My nephew, on the other hand, is devastated. I showed him mechanics on the truck. Spent time with him after his father died by driving him around and taking him to museums, camping in that truck. I tried to tell him it is time for a new chapter. That I made that promise when I was his age and that I need to do this for my own kid. Now my sister refuses to stop calling me a family traitor. Am I the a-hole? Edit. 1. I was 16 when I made the promise. I was kicked out and disowned. It was financially on my own and homeless. 2. I asked my nephew twice if he wanted to buy it. January and June. Warned him that it wouldn't stay for sale long as people have made offers and the offers kept going up. 3. The Head Start YMCA tuition-free daycare got shut down and replaced with a charter school for older kids, therefore leaving 2 private school daycare options, the nice co-op daycare or the nice international language daycare. The other YMCA is too far for me to bring any kiddo to before my work shifts. I'd like for the kid to experience daycare at least 1 or 2 days of the week. Edit. I took care of my nephew and his sisters growing up and throughout my 20s. I made sure they went to orientations. I gave them baths. I held them when they had the shakes as babies being born with withdrawal from drugs. I held my nephew and made sure he got therapy after his dad died. I made sure he got into college. Some have suggested that I tossed my nephew aside for my real child. No, I parented him when I was a child and made mistakes that my 26-year-old self wouldn't do. I see this as older brother, him as my child. Doesn't get the truck because it needs to be sold so younger sibling gets daycare. Top comments. Not the a-hole. What am I reading with these comments? Yes, it sucks you went back on a promise but you have a wife and a new child to think about. I absolutely think you did the right thing, as heartbreaking as it may have been. I know, right? He was 16, 17 there when he made a promise. As an adult now, and with all the stuff that needs doing, it made sense to sell the car. Plus, he says in a comment that he offered to sell it to them and they turned him down. I hope he's not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Things change. You have a child on the way in an uncertain time where we are headed to recession. Your children come first over extended family and other adults. I don't know why you are getting so many YTAs here, but your wife is about to require tens of thousands of dollars worth of medical treatments over the next 9 months. And childcare is expensive, along with all the other costs of infants like big-ticket items, cribs, etc., needed for safety reasons. Diapers, wipes, and formula, hundreds a month. A safe car for transporting a newborn is a necessity, not a luxury. Thank you for this. She'll be the one driving the baby to and from daycare, and I didn't want her doing it in an unsafe car. I also watch her not ask for much and make do what she has. And it just felt weird having this beautiful truck guys regularly beg me to sell, while she didn't have the very practical family-friendly car she wanted. I started looking at the budget and yeah, freaked out a little about how we could ever possibly afford that. And since my parents cut me off young, I have to figure this out on my own. The hospital? Expensive. The even somewhat decent daycare? Expensive. The nursery? Expensive. I have a good job, but it can only be stretched so far. I admit I got spooked and should have kept asking my nephew or maybe found another way to afford stuff. I rushed the decision and should have asked my partner. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take down a video of my kid's father dancing at my brother's wedding? My children's dad and I got separated and divorced 2 years ago. We're on good terms regarding co-parenting. And since he's close to my brother had invited him to his wedding. Perfectly okay with me, since the kids were thrilled to get extra time with dad. I was taking a video of my mom and my kids at the wedding and posted it on my Instagram. Hours later, I get a call from my ex yelling about my camera catching him dancing drunkenly in the background. I said, so what? He told me he's getting engaged to his conservative girlfriend soon, and if her or her conservative family saw him in this video, then there's gonna be trouble. I thought that was silly. He demanded that I take it down, but I declined. He insisted, saying he was technically recorded via my camera and he did not consent. I called him ridiculous and refused to take it down. He's gotten the kids involved now, which got me mad and made the argument escalate. Mom is saying I should take it down, but I feel like he's trying to control my social media activity. Am I the a-hole for refusing? He said that his girlfriend can and will see it via the kids since they're with me on social media. Ask yourself this, is that silly video worth destroying your co-parenting relationship with him right now? Because he is absolutely in the right to demand you take it down if he's featured in it. No one says you have to delete it off your phone, so the memory isn't gone. But it's petty of you to insist it should remain online. You're the a-hole. Also, a wedding tends to be a private event, not public. He's in his right to ask for privacy. Not really. He has no reasonable expectation of privacy, especially not when it's generally expected there will be photography. The point about damaging the co-parenting relationship stands, but I doubt that relationship will survive the ex's new relationship anyway. Everyone sucks here. He had no expectation of privacy at a wedding, where between guests and a hired photographer, cameras are all over the place. On the other hand, it's one video. Would it be really so terrible for you to remove it or make it private? I think the bigger question and red flag is his reasoning. I'd take the video down for now, but demand a larger conversation around why he's basically being fake to his new family. What does it mean the fiancé and her family are conservative? Why would dancing at a wedding be trouble but divorced with kids isn't? Or is it a problem? Does fiancé and her family know his full situation? And what does conservative mean to their lifestyle? Will there be expectations around how the kids have to act or what they can and can't do at his house once he's married? Things they aren't expected to do or believe now? To me, his reasoning for wanting the video gone raises a lot of questions about future expectations with a stepmom and stepfamily possibly involved. You're the a-hole. I don't think he actually needs a reason. If someone asks you to take down a picture/video of them, then you should. Unless you have a good reason to keep it up. I don't really see what you gain from keeping it up, and it clearly hurts him and damages your relationship with the parent of your children. I think hurting him is what she is gaining. I think it's okay for her to keep it for herself, but sharing that video on social media when he clearly said he didn't want to be seen, that should be a simple, oops, sorry, let me take it down. You're the a-hole. Update. Am I the a-hole for not moving out of my apartment so my brother can have it? Original post. I, female 23, have an older brother 32. I moved out of my parents' house earlier than him and found a small place for myself that is really close to my job. The place is not the biggest. It's a one-bedroom apartment, but it is enough for one person, and rent is very cheap, so I'm extremely happy with it. I put a lot of work into it and made sure it's my little happy space. Recently, my brother started staying over now and then. I don't have a problem with that. He works the night shift, and my place is also closer to his job than my parents' house. The problem began when he started bringing more and more of his stuff to my place. He brought his PS4, started gaming in my living room, and is overall just being a terribly inconsiderate guest, and treats me like our mom. I brought this up with my parents, and my dad suggested that I should let my brother live there and get myself a new apartment. He said I should look for a bigger place, because my brother makes less money, and he could afford my place, and I could just find something better. But I don't want a bigger apartment. I have no plans to have a family or partner where I would need anything more than one bedroom. And I put so much work into personalizing my apartment that this feels so unfair. My parents said I'd be an a-hole for both kicking my brother out now for staying over and not giving him the place. Is that true? Edit with some additional info. My brother does not pay rent to me. He used to stay here for only a couple of days, but it's been turning into weeks. I did contact my landlord as of today. She hasn't responded yet, but she's nice, so I hope she'll understand my situation. Also, additional info, I didn't know my parents or my dad would react like this. I thought he'd help me talk to him as we don't have a bad relationship. I'm trying to figure out why he thinks my brother should have my apartment too, but my dad hasn't been responsive since that conversation. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Please do not let your family bully you into giving up the thing you worked hard for. Your brother is a grown man, 32 years old, and can definitely find another place if he needs to, and can't be a considerate guest. That is your space, and you need to put your foot down and have a strong backbone, because clearly your parents are going to side with him once you make it clear you aren't giving him the place. Also, why would you need something bigger? What you have works for you. Again, don't let anyone bully you or manipulate you. He's 30. Let that man figure his own stuff out. He isn't your responsibility. If you need him out, kick his butt out. Not the a-hole. Opie, it is your place. Don't let him belittle your feelings. Tell them if they are so worried for dear helpless brother, then they should help him pay rent to an apartment of his own. Easy as that. Opie should bring all her brother's belongings to her parents' house, then change the lock if he has a key and let them deal with it. If they're so worried about their struggling son, they can deal with him. I can't decide if your brother has always been your parents' favorite, or if they are just so desperate to get a 32-year-old man out of their house that they are willing to screw you over in the process. Either way, not the a-hole and get that parasite out of your happy place ASAP. Came here to say the same. It seems like Opie's parents have a favorite child and Opie is used to accommodating her brother. I'm sure their parents are just desperate to get him out permanently, now that they've had a whiff of freedom. He's probably just happy taking over his sister's home without actually having to pay for it or being responsible. I suggest Opie changes the internet password. That seems to work on many teens. Yikes. Kick him out with his stuff and change locks. Move him before he can claim tenant rights or squatter rights or whatever. Hurry. Not the a-hole. Your brother is a grade A mooch. Agreed. Change the locks ASAP. And tell him in writing he can't stay over anymore and he needs to come get his stuff by X date. Opie, it sounds like you've been realized to think your brother's needs should come before your own. I'm telling you, your parents' request is so weird that it's almost laughable, and you should confidently ignore it and focus on improving your own life. Your brother is a grown man and is trying to take your apartment rather than find his own. Step 1. You can't stay here anymore. It breaks the lease. Step 2. When he leaves for the night shift, have the place rekeyed. Drop off his stuff with mom and dad. Step 3. Text brother, I dropped your stuff at mom and dad's. It was fun having you hang out here. Too bad about the lease. I'll let the landlord know you're interested in the place if they get an opening. Now for the update. First, I want to say thank you for all the encouragement in the comments of my last post. It took me longer to deal with this than I expected, but finally, I think I found a solution. Several people asked for an update, so here it is. So I attempted to talk to my father again, but at this point, I am assuming that a lot of the comments were right about them just wanting me to deal with my brother in their place. I took time off my work schedule to pack his things together and waited for him to crash here after work again, since I still needed a key back. Looking back, probably not the best move, but I was stressed and tired. It was an awful fight, but it did end with him eventually leaving my apartment and returning my keys. The reason I didn't get the locks changed is because my landlord reminded me that this could be very expensive and she wouldn't cover the cost for me. It's been several days, and my brother has not contacted me since, nor attempted to enter my apartment. I am still considering changing the locks and might do so soon with my landlord's permission and covering the cost myself, but it seems I have my space back. The thing that really bothers me is how my relationship with my parents suddenly suffered so much from this. My initial reaction when I asked them to help me throw out my brother and my dad responding with the apartment switch was that they couldn't be serious. Apparently they were. My mom did talk to me this week and said since I am on good terms with my landlord, I could figure something out. It's completely ridiculous and almost comically evil at this point. I told her that's not how renting a space works. I don't even know if this is pure entitlement or ego. Doesn't matter though, I decided to lower contact with them over this until they find out what they did wrong. Regardless if they do or don't, my family are not the main characters of my life, and I am done with being a doormat to them. It took some encouragement to stand up for myself, and I want to thank everyone who gave it to me. You handled this just right. I would at least find out what changing the lock or rekeying it would cost. You can usually just change parts of it, and it's fairly easy to do it yourself. It's a valuable life skill. I took my own lock from home to home for a few years. Also, it may be cheaper to just have the lock rekeyed. Thank you. That's exactly the word I was looking for. You just changed the barrel or some such component. Cheap and easy. You do know you can change your locks yourself, right? You need a new locks, a screwdriver, and the ability to read and follow basic instructions. A power drill would be helpful, but it's not necessary. Well, it's a rental. I can't just change the locks without asking my landlord. I did it as a 20-something by myself, and it was pretty easy. Just ask your landlord if you can have the locks changed. He doesn't need to know you're the one doing it. You'll still have to buy the lock, but it's a lot better than hiring someone to do it. Then I'll ask again and tell her I'll cover the cost and look into doing it myself. Thanks for the tip. Here's what I would do, because I believe that for the sake of sanity and peace, and not being demonized for something that is an egregious ask, this is a situation that calls for a little white lie. I would say that I spoke with my landlord, and I would tell your landlord beforehand so she can back you up, and she said no, that she will be the person to choose all future tenants, and furthermore, that is not my place to simply decide who gets to live there next. That if I give up my apartment, she already has people in mind with whom she has developed a rapport and is confident that she'd enjoy them as tenants. And if I were a landlord, I would absolutely feel this way. I would definitely not allow a tenant to decide who the next tenant is going to be. And I'd be suspicious that they even suggested usurping my power. Your parents offloaded their son onto you and made it your problem, so turnabout is fair play. It's not a malicious lie. It is merely a small lie to ward off what is an exceedingly unfair demand of you and your home. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents that if their third partner moves in, I'm living with my grandparents? So my 16 female parents recently made a new friend, 27 female, who it turns out is more than a friend. The way they explained it to me is that she's their third partner. I guess it's some poly thing. I don't know. I don't follow that stuff. I guess they're still married and all that, but she's more like a secondary partner. The last few months were weird, but I was managing. They'd warned me in advance if she was coming over or if they were going to replace. I could handle that, but what was awkward is that in the mornings after, she's usually still there. It's a little freaky getting ready for school and making small talk when you know why they're here. Her visits were getting more and more common, and my parents wanted to have a talk with me that she's moving in. The spare room will be her room, and they'll all live together as a throuple. I don't think I can handle that. It's just too weird, especially since she's closer to my age than theirs. Now, she's friendly enough, but it's still weird, like she's halfway between family friend and stepmom. It's not any one thing really, it's just that the whole situation is just too much too fast for me. My grandparents live nearby, and I'm always welcome to stay there. So I told my parents I'm just gonna live with them at least until I finish school. They did not take it well. They think I hate them, and I'm not being open-minded. I explained I still love them and I want to live with them, but on top of being uncomfortable, I don't want to explain to my friends who the young woman who lives in our spare room is. Plus, I admit it really does gross me out when I see this woman being affectionate with my parents. They never do anything inappropriate in front of me, but still. They said I was being bigoted and that they were disappointed in me, but let me go and said my room will be waiting for me. Now I feel awful and wonder if maybe I should have just kept my head down until college. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's asking a lot of a 16-year-old to live in the middle of a throuple. Most teenagers don't want to know anything about their parents' intimate lives, so having breakfast with their overnight guest is really a stretch. Move in with your grandparents, relax and focus in high school and don't feel guilty about it. I'm a former swinger/poly person. I cannot imagine putting my child in this kind of a situation. 2 years isn't long to wait. My partner's parents were swingers when he was a kid/teen, and the kids were scarred by it, permanently. Hard not the a-hole. Sorry that your parents want an F-buddy more than for you to be comfortable in your family home. Not the a-hole. The least they could do is allow you to move out peacefully instead of guilt trip you and call you hateful. Holy midlife crisis, Batman. I cannot agree more. This child wants and needs a family, but parents want an F-buddy. Idiots that want to celebrate this throuple fail to recognize that their new made-up word highlights a relationship shared by 3 people, and not the child. Nobody cares about your kinks, and those expecting a kid to just roll out the welcome wagon for some needy 20-some-year-old because others here need to defend their own choices are freaking selfish. Opie deserves her parents' love, attention, and resources. Poly is fine, but kids shouldn't be dragged into it. Don't bring strangers into your kid's life. Not the a-hole. Amazing how so many people who claim to be open-minded are so close-minded when others don't agree with them. If the 27 female moves in, it's going to get weirder real quick. The grandparents seem like a really good option. People are always open-minded, unless you don't validate their beliefs/lifestyles. And when I say validate, means approved, promote, and live that lifestyle too. It's like people calls you all kinds of phobic when you say you're not attracted to them. Last story. Am I the a-hole for living with my mother full-time since I'll have to share a room with my half-brother when he's born? I, 16 female, mostly live with my mom. I do every other weekend with my dad and his wife, who is pregnant with my half-brother and is due in 3 months. The issue is that my dad's place only has 2 bedrooms, so I'll have to share my room with a baby whenever I go over there. So I told my dad when they announced she was pregnant that I'm not sharing my room, especially with a baby. Last weekend was my last visit. I did that so they'll be free to get ready for the baby, which I thought they'd appreciate. I'll go over again if they happen to move somewhere with an extra room, but I'll probably be 18 before that happens. Like I said, I figured Dad would appreciate me giving him time to get ready, but instead, he's been nuts. Not only is he not talking to me, he's also saying until I grow up, I won't get to meet my brother when he's born. Not that I was looking forward to that anyway, and that he's going to have the judge make me come. Now that's not gonna work. Where I live, at my age, judges don't usually care, so I'm not worried about that. Still, he said I'm being really immature, and I need to grow up and come over again. I already told him I'm not, but now he's been calling my mom and bothering her. Not the a-hole. The baby should be in the parents' bedroom for the first 6 months to a year. There is no reason you should share a bedroom with an infant. Actually, there is a reason she needs to share a room with a baby. Who else is going to get up with a baby in the middle of the night? There's the truth of it. He wants free babysitting when she's there so he can sleep in. Not the a-hole. They're trying to make you raise their child. Run away. And Dad also doesn't want to pay ex-wife more child support because he'll have to if Opie's there full-time. Ding ding ding! Winner! I can almost guarantee that's the main reason behind Dad's objections. If Opie lives with Mom full-time, he has to pay more child support. If they share parenting time, this support is reduced. Aside from that, Opie is not the a-hole. She's 16 and deserves to have her own space, even if not living with Dad full-time. She needs privacy and not to have to deal with a baby waking up all night long, the smell of loaded diapers in her sleeping space, etc. Trying to be fair, maybe this baby wasn't planned, and moving to a larger place is not financially possible for dad right now, but he needs to understand where OP is coming from as well. Not a-hole. I think your father was counting on having your forced help to make his weekends go easier. Also, he may be worried that he may have to pay additional child support if you live full-time with your mom. Either way, threatening you about withholding affection and access, both parental and sibling, is an absolute a-hole move on your dad's part. And then calling your mother to badger her is the crappy cherry on top. Don't feel bad, OP. Teens need sleep and privacy. Your dad is being the jerk here. Lol, dad can take it in front of a judge to try to force weekend visits. But what judge is going to hear, "I want to force my 16-year-old to stay weekends and share a room with a newborn," and think, "That's a great idea and so appropriate"? The judge is going to look at your dad like a moron. The fact that he is straight up giving you the silent treatment and threatening to withhold your relationship with your new half-siblings, even if you don't want it, proves the man isn't mature enough to have 2 kids, let alone 1. Not the a-hole. Have fun at your mom's without the 2 a.m. wake-ups.